What's going on, guys, and welcome back to... Hold on just a second. I gotta take this. Hello?
Hello, Free C Style.
Who is this?
A fan, and someone who wants to ask you, how many Halloween movies are there?
12?
Name the killer in Friday the 13th.
Pamela Voorhees?
Who was the original Freddy Krueger?
Really? You gonna ask me that? Everybody knows it's Robert England.
Who played Jason last?
Derek Mears?
Damn.
Hello? Hello? I guess I hung up. Scream 2 was released in 1997 and was once again directed by Wes Craven and return stars Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, and David Arquette. And the story follows a newer string of murders set on a college campus where Sidney Prescott must once again face her past. Welcome back, guys, to my Scream film series review. I have already reviewed the original, and I'll have that in the link below. So if you hadn't checked that out yet, go ahead and do so and then come back to this. And as stated before, I will be reviewing every Scream movie up to the new one, which comes out next week on the 14th. I will have it out that weekend. So I will be reviewing every single Scream movie up to the new one, so stay tuned for that. And I am somebody who has always placed this series close to my heart. If it wasn't for that original film, that original Scream movie, I would not be into horror movies today. I honestly do believe that. In other words, I owe everything to this series. I owe my love of horror to this series. Without this series, there would be no horror for me. I really don't believe that there would be. I mean, out of all the others that had followed, because if it wasn't for this, I wouldn't have followed Freddy, I wouldn't have followed Michael, I wouldn't have followed Jason, or none of them. So, I owe everything to them. I owe everything to Scream. So when Scream 2 came out, that's when I really got into this series. So I was very early into the game. It was like a year or two after the original came out is when I actually started getting into the original. And then I started noticing the second one, and I noticed that in a video store, so I was like, oh, let's rent that. So I did, and the rest is history. It was the first horror film franchise that ever hit these blue eyes. So with that being said, let's get into the positives of Scream 2. The setting was a nice change of pace. It made sense. You know, going from this town of Woodsboro to this college campus where this killer just starts killing people in the name of sequels this time. I mean, the tagline literally says, someone's taking their love of sequels one step too far. It just gave more of that originality with the setting alone. Some people that didn't really care for the college campus setting, but I'm one of those that actually did. It just gave you that sense of danger. Wherever Sidney goes, it doesn't matter. She or anybody that she's around is always going to be in danger because some psychopath is always out for her. So it doesn't really matter where she hides. She's always going to be in danger, which is a dang shame. I feel sorry for this woman. Speaking of the setting, it reminds me of something else that came out a year after this in '98, which kind of followed along that same trope, Urban Legend, which was also set on a campus, on a college school ground campus. Again, that goes back to what I said in the original review for this. Shortly after this series started, people just started kind of mimicking it. Not in a bad way, but, you know, there are exceptions. But, you know, again, to each his own. That's not really a bad thing. I'm just stating a fact. And of course, you got the pop culture references, the thing that made the original so unique. The meta movie references was just genius. Especially in the classroom scene where Randy was talking to some of his other classmates about Godfather, the Alien movies, and this and that. It knew what it was.
Many sequels have surpassed their original.
Oh, yeah?
Name one.
Yeah. Aliens. Far better than the first.
Yeah, well, there's no accounting for taste.
Thank you, Ridley Scott rules. Name another.
No, Aliens is a classic, okay? Get away from her, you bitch.
I believe the line is stay away from her, you bitch. It's film class, right?
And there's even a line where somebody says, who would want to do that? Sequels suck. And that goes to show you right there that was so much on the nose, but in a good way. Because this movie knew what it was, and it just wanted to slap that in there just real quick. Because this is a sequel, and they literally say a line saying, sequels suck. So that was pretty interesting in a funny way. Plus the whole what's your favorite scary movie line that the killer always throws out. It's pretty good. It's one of those catchphrases that, you get in movies that people use all the time. And it's just, that's how popular it's gotten. And the returning cast was great. You got Neve Campbell coming back as the main protagonist. She still has that fierce way about her, while at the same time being very vulnerable. She shows her vulnerable side. In another case, she really shows you how tough she is and how she can get away from this guy, like every time.
What do you want?
I want you. It's showtime.
Then why don't you show your face, you fucking coward?
My pleasure.
And you get Courtney Cox and David Arquette that comes back as newscaster Gil Withers and Sheriff Dewey Riley. And in this one, I think it showed Courtney Cox's more human side. Like in the first one, I said that she involved, and she was a little bit of an exploitation of Neve Campbell's character, and she was a little bit of a jerk. I won't say anything else but that. But in this one, it really does showcase her humanity side.
I feel really bad. I never say that because I never feel bad about anything. But I feel bad now.
I just think she evolves a little bit better than what she did in the original. It's like in this one, she realizes the error of her ways, and they go on from there. And I like that trait. I like that extra trait that they gave that character. And Dewey Riley, of course, he's about the same. I mean, kind of a oddball, but at the same time still evolving. You just get the loving this character. He's just become sort of a fan favorite, kind of like Randy was.
Why don't you just leave her alone? Hasn't she been through enough? And my name is Dwight.
I was just doing my job, Dwight.
No matter who gets hurt in the process.
David Arquette, he still gave it his all. An interesting fact, Chief Hartley was played by Louis Arquette, who was actually in real life David Arquette's father. So, interesting fact there. Now, The Killers was intriguing. Once again, spoiler alert, but who hasn't really seen this series up to the new one, of course. Once again, you have awesome talent in the likes of Timothy Oliphant and Laurie Metcalf. I hope I said that name right. If I didn't, I apologize. They throw sort of a Friday the 13th, original Friday the 13th vibe in this, where you have Laurie's character as the mother of Billy Loomis's character, one of the killers in the original. So you have this mother out for revenge, which that's where the original Friday the 13th vibe comes from. It was very heavily influenced by that film. They even mention it as one of those meta references earlier on, as Mrs. Voorhees was a terrific serial killer. So you have all these references. It was heavily influenced by the original Friday the 13th, by the third act, by the time this particular killer showed up. Because she was a mother of the original killer. She's just taking good old-fashioned revenge. So it was a revenge type of motivation, just like in Friday the 13th, the original. Then you have the partner, Mickey, played by Timothy Oliphant, who's a great actor, by the way. He's done so many things since Scream 2. He really evolved as an actor. But you have Mickey, this freaky Tarantino film student type character, which Randy also said earlier on. And you find out that he's been a serial killer even before the events of this film. So Lord knows how many victims he's got to before the events of this film. They never elaborate on that, but he played a pretty crazy character as well. They were both pretty crazy, especially Laurie Metcalf's character. It's all in her eyes.
You're as crazy as your son was.
What did you just say? Was that a negative, disparaging remark about my son? About my Billy?
And then, like in the original, I got to mention Randy, played by Jamie Kennedy, which I don't think I've said who played him, but everybody knows that. But anyway, Jamie Kennedy returns as Randy. And just like in the first one, he was that geeky, film, nerdy type guy that you just want to hang out with, especially if you're a movie geek yourself like I am. I stated in my original review, he was just awesome.
Who'd want to do that? Sequels suck. No, come on, man. Oh, please, please. By definition alone, they're inferior film.
It's just a shame that they had to kill him off. I remember back when I was young, mind you, I was young, and this was around the time again when I was getting into these, and whenever that scene showed up where he was stabbed in that van, I was so upset. I was crying. I was whimpering. It took me a while to get over that, but eventually I did, obviously. But he was definitely a fan favorite of mine. Especially right up to the end, he was just getting goofier by the second. He was like really roping me in. But I guess that's why they did it, is because they wanted you to feel for this character before his demise. They succeeded with me. And I like the whole Cotton Weary side plot. You know, in the original, I didn't really elaborate on this, but in the original, you see this TV news thing where you see this guy getting escorted into this police car, and his name is Cotton Weary, and supposedly the killers from the original had framed him for Sidney Prescott's mother's murder. And by the time they got to this, they decided to elaborate on that, and I like the way they did that. Liev Schreiber played a pretty convincing character, and that was more of a way to keep the mystery alive, like who the killer was. Or was it this guy all along, even after he was exonerated for this film? Is it him this time? That's another good way for them to keep the mystery alive. I like how they expanded this guy and Sidney Prescott's relationship. That was just interesting to see. Now that I've rambled on about the good, as much as I love this movie, I do have some issues. So let's delve into the negatives. That whole necklace thing where Sidney's boyfriend gives her his necklace, his Greek letters, that is supposed frat brothers gave him as a way of like tradition. And if you give that to your girlfriend, they're gonna beat you up or do something to you or whatever. I never really got into that. For me, it kind of slowed the movie down a little bit. I could have dealt without that whole entire thing, especially after he started singing that song in the cafeteria, which I guess on a sentimental level, it was alright. But for the sake of the movie, I didn't really think it was all that useful. Plus this whole thing where Jerry O'Connor, who plays the boyfriend of Neve Campbell's character, he goes after the killer after she is attacked by him in that house, which made no sense. Made Sidney look more vulnerable and just out there for anybody to grab, and he didn't really do nothing. It just didn't really make sense that he did that. All he did was just get cut by the killer. And she was already out of harm's way, so what was the point? And the whole computer lab scene where after the killer was threatening Sidney Prescott on the computer of the messages from the killer, the police protection program, who was supposedly supposed to be protecting her, kind of set her aside at an area where anybody could have gotten her. That didn't make sense. Way to protect your people. It just really wasn't that smart. And you've heard me bitch and complain about this in the first film's review, but the killer once again was clumsy, even more so in this film. I think he was drinking a little bit too much of the wine in this, more so than he was in the first one. It just seemed like he'd gotten worse in this one. Tripping over things. He was just trippy all the way around. And there was a serious lack of blood and gore in this. The carnage candy really wasn't that satisfying. Other than the police cop car scene where the killer got in the passenger seat after killing that one cop and then ran that other cop over with the car and he was impaled by a railing or whatever it was. That's about the bloodiest scene in that whole entire movie that I saw. It just wasn't much there in terms of blood and gore. So in closing, Scream 2 was a little bit of a step down, yet it still had its moments. It was still enjoyable. Unlike its predecessor, Scream 2 does take a little bit of a nosedive. However, there are still some truly great moments of mystery and mayhem to the point of a happy accident. So, what was your thoughts on Scream 2? Was this your favorite in the franchise? Do you hold this particular sequel high on the Scream chain? Or do you find the original more entertaining? Leave me your comment down below and give me your thoughts. Thank you so much, guys, for watching this review. Stay tuned for my review for Scream 3 coming soon. Like, subscribe, comment, and share, and I'll see you on that one. Peace.